first started practicing seriously, going back to Elam, I didn't really know what my practice was about. So the experience of going through art school and just making lots of art, and now with 10 years of experience, I can look back and I can see really clearly what the themes are, and that I do sort of come back to the same processes and the same ideas, and what I talked about before, that that relationship that we have with our environment, that's definitely something that I think echoes through everything that I do, and this consideration for the environment and working sustainably and creating that influences the decisions about what kind of work I make, the process and materials that I use to make it, packaging, presentation, all of those kinds of things. Yeah. I've totally been captivated by ferns recently, and that's given rise to this body of work that I'm calling fernware. And ferns, they really lend themselves beautifully to being impressed in the clay, because the stems aren't too thick, they're quite fine, and the leaves are quite fine. And part of the thing working with clay is that if you're using a thick stem of the plant, you can create a point of weakness where the clay might crack in the process. So there was definitely a bit of learning there, and so yes, that's definitely made me more selective about which types of leaves I was going to keep working with. And yeah, now it's just kind of exploring and finding new ferns that have interesting properties, like the spores on the underside or the shape of the leaf, or The inspiration behind the folded vessel, I guess, came from my love of origami and working with paper. While I was at Elam, I spent a lot of time in the print studio, and I loved that. But what I found was that working with paper was challenging because of needing large drawers to store prints in and keeping them flat and dry, and then the expense of having to frame them, and which meant that they weren't at a very price point that made it easy for many people to have them, and I got quite frustrated with that process and sort of having to invest a lot in finishing those pieces. So clay was great. I just ended up moving naturally more towards working with clay when I left art school, because it was easy and I could do it at home, and while I did need a kiln, the actual making process I could do easily in my garage. And so the folded vessel, it has that printmaking quality, in that the process is rolling out a slab of clay to work with, and having those slabs of clay is like having a piece of paper that I can then impress objects into. And then this kind of thinking about origami and folding and working with paper inspired me to create a vessel that had this sort of folded bottom, like a cardboard box, and something, I guess, a slightly different take on a cup, and something that still embodied my love of printmaking, but was functional as well. I'm Lara Thomas. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I work in ceramics, print and sculptural installation.